All right, you guys, as you can see by the thumbnail, I'm back with another one. So real quick, before I get into this story, let me just make a quick announcement. So last night I did a live, and I told you guys in my live that I was probably going to run another live tonight so that I can update you on that announcement that I made last night with regards to the show that's going to be coming out. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and push that back until either tomorrow night or Sunday night. There's really nothing for me to talk about tonight. You know, I did hear from the production company, and they did confirm that this video is set to drop on the 28th. That's for sure. It's ready. It's ready to go. It's done. So it's definitely coming out on the 28th. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to have an exact time that it was going to be released so that I could tell you guys. However, I don't have that information. I'm not going to get it until tomorrow. So it don't make no sense for me to jump on live tonight and, you know, without that information. So as soon as I get it, you know, which will probably be tomorrow, if I don't jump on a live tomorrow night, it will be Sunday night. And I'll let you guys know exactly what time. So anyways, in the community, I put a posting in there, a message about, you know, how to find the video, where to find it and how to find it. Now, there's about 6 links in there, but to keep it real simple for those of you that are not computer savvy, that don't know how to go here, how to go there, you know, drop down over here to go over there to move this. So just to make it real simple, the top link is the YouTube link. So hit that link. That link's going to bring you to their site, to Insiders, their main site. Once you get on that site, there's like a line that'll say, you know, playlist or business, financial videos. Hit videos. Just tap on videos, and that'll bring you to another spot where the video will be right there. That's like where all their crime, you know, crime videos and all that. So hit that first link. That'll bring you to their dashboard. And then when you see videos, tap on the videos, and it will be right there. Obviously, the first one at the top of the list, that's the next video that's coming out. So that ain't, if that's not simplified, if that's not simple enough, I'll explain it again when I go live. So this story right here, it's about an individual named Sporty from Eastside Long Beach, Eastside Longo. So, you know, he's from Eastside Long Beach. He grew up out there. He's got a lot of cousins and a lot of primos. His cousins, his primos, his tios, they're all from Santa Anita. And most of them are from the 80s. They're from that era. They've done a lot of time. They're all validated. So, you know, when they come out to the streets, he's running around with them. They interact with them when he's a youngster. And I'm sure, you know, they're gaming him up. He's getting schooled. He's getting laced up by a lot of these guys. So, you know, he's got a Theo. I want to say it's his Theo, might be his cousin, named Gary Ramirez, that has done time, a lot of time. You know, he ended up getting caught up out there with Sana. He's somebody that was close to Sana. He's still doing life right now. He's still doing time this day. He's a lifer, and he's somebody that just barely got out of the SHU program with everybody else. When they opened up the SHU and let everybody out on that class action lawsuit, he ended up getting out and hitting the main lines as well. So when Sporty was 18, he ended up getting caught up with 2.5 pounds of meth. He got caught with $30,000 cash. He had a couple cuetes on him. He had a bunch of charges. So when Sporty was 18, he ended up getting caught up with 2.5 pounds of meth. He got caught with $30,000 cash, a couple guns, and a bunch of other shit. That was his first case. That would be the case that would send him to prison. And like I've said many times in the past, the 80s, that era, this was a different time. Prison was a different kind of environment back then. Different politics, different caliber of individuals that were going to prison. It was just a different place. You barely had any dropouts. You didn't have any dropout gangs. And you were either loyal to the Nuestra Familia or you were loyal to the Mexican Mafia. So being that this was his first bid, they ended up sending him to CRC. I guess at that time, CRC Wasco was like their reception center for Southern California. So being that this was his first bid, they ended up sending Sporty to CRC, Norco. I guess at that time, this was considered the reception center for Southern California. They sent him out there. He had 4.5 years. So being that this is Sporty's first term, you know, he gets there. He's trying to earn some bones. He's young. He's trying to make a name for himself. He starts raising his hand for everything: stabbings, assaults, beat downs. Whenever somebody needs to be removed off the yard or something comes up, he raises his hand. He's getting caught up in all kind of shit. He don't care. He got 4.5 years. And of course, as he's going through the system, he's starting to build a reputation fast for being a hitter. He's somebody that's always in the mix. Every time something goes down on the yard, he's involved. So he's starting to build a name for himself. So when Sporty gets to CRC, he ends up going out to the yard, and there's an individual that's running the yard, a llavero, and he tells Sporty, he's like, hey, check this out. We got a hot potato that's, coming from the Carnal, Turtle from Ontario, and, he needs to be dealt with ASAP. I hope I said that right. Ontario. And of course, when Sporty hears that, he's like, yeah, no problem. Where's he at? Point me in the right direction. He figures, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to earn some bones, make a name for myself. And this is coming from a Carnal. This is coming from Turtle, from Ontario. So, he's game to do it. And the llavero, he tells him, he's like, check this out. Supposedly, this individual, he beat up Turtle's one of his nieces. He beat her up, put hands on her, put her in the hospital real bad. So, this individual, he needs to go. So he tells him this individual, he's got to go. So, Sporty's like, yeah, he's like, give me a filero, I'll handle it right now. But the llavero, he tells him now, he's like, hold up, bro. He's like, it can't be done like that. It's got to be done a certain way. So Sporty's like, well, who is it? Who is it? So the llavero tells him it's a CO. The fucking dude is a CO. He works in the prison. But the thing about it is he works in the visiting room. He doesn't work out on the yard. So this is basically a kamikaze. He's got to go in the visiting room and hit this hura that works in the visiting room. And, as far as I know from like every prison, at least I know like in San Quentin or the prisons that I've been to, the visiting room is like, that's a neutral area. It's a no-fly zone. It's considered an area that if you run into an enemy or somebody over there in the visiting room, that area is considered, an area that nothing happens in the visiting room. You got people's kids out there, people's mothers, their wives, their family, and it's like an unwritten rule. It's an understanding amongst convicts that nothing happens in the visiting room. If you run across somebody that you have an issue with, they get a pass. That's for the most part. If you got a high priority target or something and you run across them in the visiting room, then that's a different story. And even that, it has to be one of those situations like it's really got to be, a high priority target. Because again, not only do you got people's families out there, their mothers, their kids, you don't want to end up doing something out there in the visiting room and end up hurting somebody's kids on an accident. People are out there sitting at tables and you're out there with the target, booking the target or bombing on them, and other people are getting hit. You just don't want to do all that. So it's a known kind of unwritten policy, a known policy amongst inmates that the visiting room is off limits. It's a no-fly zone. It's considered a neutral area. So Sporty's like, what? The visiting room? Damn, bro. He's like, for real, a CO? But Sporty don't give a fuck. He's like, all right, it's all good. Now, the thing about it, that the thing that worked in Sporty's, to his advantage was that he got visits every week. His lady would come up, every week, and occasionally his mom would come up and they'd bring up other family, but they would come up frequently. So, this kind of worked in, to his advantage, in his favor. So on this particular weekend when this incident took place, so she brings his mom up, and I want to say his brother was there. So this was actually, it wasn't his sister, it was his sister-in-law. So, they're out there and they do their thing. They run their visit, and at the end of the visit, towards the tail end, he gets his visit in. There's no sense in doing it as soon as they come out. You can go ahead and enjoy your visit. The visit's like an hour. The last 10 minutes is when, he made his move. So, he goes out there, he visits with his family, his mom, his sister-in-law, his brother. And towards the end of the visit, he sees the CO, the target. He identifies, that's the CO by name, obviously, or somehow, some way they pointed him out. He knows who this CO is. So towards the end of the visit, he blitzes the CO. Bang, bing, boop, bop, beep, oh, boop, beep, beep, bop, boop, oh, my boop. So Sporty, he's young, he's healthy, and the CO didn't have a chance. So he stomped him out bad, something vicious. They end up coming up in the visiting room, and obviously because he was the one that jumped on the CO, they shake his family up, they strip him out, they process him out like they were involved in some type of crime or something themselves, and they kick him out. Obviously, they kick him out of the institution. So he goes to the hole. He ends up in the hole. Now, the thing about it is CRC at that time, I don't know if this has changed over the years. It might be different now. But at that time, CRC did not have an ad seg. And, if you got caught with a pedazo, or you got caught booking somebody or breaking some kind of major, infraction over there, and they wanted to lock you up, put you in the hole, what they would do is they ship you to Chino. They didn't have a hole over there, so they ship you to Chino, and that's where they lock you up at. And that's what they did with Sporty. So they ship him to Chino. He gets to Chino, he goes to Palm Hall. And at that time, Palm Hall is like, that's where they send all the parole violators that are coming through. It's the reception center. So there's a lot of parole violators that come through, and they're all, they land in Palm Hall if they're validated. And it just so happens to be that there's 9 canales over there at that time. There's 9 of them, 9 Mexican Mafia members. And it just so happens to be that Turtle from Ontario is one of them. He's there. And he's running that yard at that time. So Sporty, he's 18 years old. He's 18. He's in Chino, and there's 9 canales over there. And when he lands in Chino, he ends up landing in the cell with an individual by the name of Charlie Chats from Clover. I'm sure some of you that have been around, you probably know who Charlie Chats is. He's an old school cat that's been around for a long time. So that ends up being his cellie, Charlie Chats from Clover. Now, it's safe to assume that because there's 9 Mexican Mafia members that are there in the oil, that it's a pretty serious, they were probably running a pretty serious program at that time. You know what I mean? That many C's at once in one spot, that it was probably a serious place to be at that time. So, he's there, he's in the cell with Charlie Chat. So he's gaming him up. He's in the cell, he's indoctrinating him on everything he needs to know. And Charlie Chats, he was validated. He had 2 family members that I believe were also C's. They were also Mexican Mafia members, 2 brothers. And he's somebody that's been around, has a lot of respect in the system as well. So they're in the cell and he's lacing them up. Sporty's 18 years old. He's green, but he's around some solid individuals. So they're lacing him up. Now, the first time he ends up going to the yard, that's when he runs into Turtle from Ontario. So, Turtle, obviously, when Sporty got there, he knows who he is. He read his paperwork. It's probably part of the new arrival process. When you come in, they probably shot him his paperwork, why he's there, why he got locked up, his lockup order and all that. So, Turtle, he sees why he's there. He sees that he jumped on a hura, but he don't know the details behind it. He just sees that this youngster's in there for basically stomping out a CO in the visiting room, but he doesn't know none of the details, why it happened, what led to it or nothing like that. That's all he knows at that point. But they're out there on the yard, and at some point, Turtle pulls him over. So Turtle introduces himself, and he asks Sporty, he's like, bro, why would you rush your hura in the visiting room? Why would you do that? Like I said, the visiting room is considered a no-fly zone. So, he's lightweight jamming him up. What possessed you to rush a hura, to beat this hura up in the visiting room? So that's when Sporty's like, check it out. He's like, when I got to CRC, when I got out to the yard, the big homie got at me and he told me, he's like, hey, we got a hot potato. We got an individual here that basically he beat up, Turtle from Ontario's. He beat your niece up. He beat her up, and, this is somebody that's got to go. And I raised my hand, and, I'm the one that did it. He told me it was a hura that worked in the visiting room. He's like, so, I was following, directives. I was following orders. When Turtle hears, the first thing he says, he's like, what do you mean? What do you mean, big homie? He's like, who are you talking about? There's nobody over there on that yard in CRC that is a Mexican mafia member. They don't got no active brothers over there. So he's like, who are you talking about, big homie? And Sporty tells him, and Turtle's like, it's like, man, there's no big homies over there. Basically, what it was is Sporty's young and he doesn't know the terminology or none of that stuff at that point. He's still green. To him, anybody with a big whip, a big mustache, and an older cat is a big homie. So that's when Turtle tells him that that individual, the Llavero over there, that's not a big homie. But nonetheless, he's like, I don't know nothing about. Nobody ever beat up any of my nieces. I don't know nothing about this shit. What are you talking about? He said he told you that somebody beat my niece up, and that I sent word over there to have that Huda smashed. So now Turtle's pissed off. He's pissed off because, for one, this is a reckless move. To jump on a Huda, that's something that is going to be avoided for the most part, unless it's something real serious. Jumping on a CO, stabbing a CO, moving on a CO. I mean, don't get me wrong. Those things happen when a CO makes something real personal and they're going out of their way to mess with certain individuals, or they're really disrespecting and they're making a point of going out of their way to do it, then they'll get touched. They can get touched too. But for the most part, that's avoided because everybody's smart enough to know that when you start hitting Hudas, you start whacking them, they're going to come in on a rampage. They're going to come in, they're going to start tearing shit up. They're going to start searching cells, taking contraband. In the process, they're going to be on a warpath. They're probably going to beat some people up, to get some get back. And it's just something that's avoided if at all possible. So it's a reckless move. And the thing that Turtle don't like is that this was something that was done on his name and he don't know nothing about it. So he's like, man, I don't know nothing about this shit. And like I said, he's upset about it. He's like, I don't know nothing about it. I don't know who this individual is that's representing himself like a big homie, but I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna get to the bottom of this shit. So, again, Turtle's pissed off. He tells Sporty again, he's like, I don't know who this individual is that's saying that somebody touched my niece, some CO touched my niece. He's like, I don't know what this shit's about, but I'm gonna find out. He tells Sporty, he goes, I'm gonna recall this fucking lame that had you jump on this Huda in the visiting room that said that I was the one that sent a directive over there to do it. I'm gonna recall this individual. I'm gonna bring him back here. And I bet you that before he gets over here, he's gonna check out. He's not gonna come over here. So Turtle, he's mad. He's like, you know what? I don't know who this individual is, but I'm gonna find out. So he says, you know what, youngster? I'm gonna teach you your first lesson in prison. I'm gonna have this fucking lame recalled, this individual that said, I sent word over there to have this Huda moved on because he jumped on my niece. And I'll bet you whatever you want to bet that this guy checks in and that he'll never hit a tear on this block. So that's exactly what happens. He sends word over there to have this individual report to the back, a term meaning that they want you to go back to the hole. They want you back there to the hole so that they can get at you about something. He sends word out there and he tells this individual to report to the back and he checks out. He was up to some foul shit. For whatever reason, he wanted that CO jumped on. Maybe he was hitting Clavo out there in the visiting room and this particular Huda was, he was hating. Maybe he was the one that was stopping the Clavo from coming in, or he was sweating his people. I don't know. Maybe it was something personal, but nonetheless, Turtle knew nothing about it. And he never sent word over there to have no Huda hit like that. And then he's lightweight upset with Sporty because he feels like, he should know better than to do some stupid shit like that. But at the same time, Sporty was just following directions. He was following directives from the Llavero out there that was running the yard. So plus he's 18 years old. He's a first termer and they like him. They like Sporty. They took a liking to him. all the carnales that were back there. There was 9 of them, and they embraced him. And then on top of that, Turtle, he's not a hothead. He's a level-headed individual that, he's not somebody that's just gonna just start smashing and ask questions later. He's not a hardliner like that. He's a fair-minded individual. And then Turtle was like, you know what, this is a good youngster. He was offended enough to damn near kill this Huda out there, stomped him damn near to death, because he was told that somebody disrespected my niece. So, I mean, whether it was true or not, he did this for me out of respect and loyalty for me. So, they embraced him. They liked Sporty, and they started lacing him up out there. But, Charlie Chats being in the cell with him, somebody that had been around at that point, he had somebody that was gaming him up around the clock in the cell. So, he's absorbing all this schooling. He's taking it in, and he's taking it serious. Sporty is striving. He wants to become a carnal. And, for the most part, it doesn't matter what prison you're in. For the most part, the district attorneys, they don't pick cases up. You get caught stabbing somebody, you get caught with a weapon or other kind of DA referrals, it's very rare for them to pick a case up, to pick it up and prosecute you. A lot of the times they're dead bang, cases where they catch you red-handed, but they don't pick it up. Most of the time the DA rejects those cases. However, when it comes to assaulting a staff member or a CO, a Huda, that's a different story. They take that stuff personal. So obviously they pick the case up. They pick it up, and Sporty, he stays there for about 2 years fighting the case. He ends up getting convicted. I don't know how much more time they gave him, but he ended up staying back there in Palm Hall for 2 years fighting the case. And again, Palm Hall is, there's a lot of parolees coming through in transit. They come through, they get out. A lot of the carnales that were there, the 9 that were there, he's seen them come and go, once or twice, most of them. And, Turtle himself, he ended up paroling. And when he came back, Sporty, being that Sporty was still there, he pulled Sporty in the cell with him. So now, Sporty was in the cell with Charlie Chats from Clover, and Turtle, so he's gaming him up to get ready. He's priming him up so that, he can go out there on the streets and work with one of his crews out there. So, he's getting a lot of schooling while he was there in Palm Hall. When he left a different type of individual. He was no longer that 18-year-old kid that came in a couple years earlier. So I want to say Sporty and Turtle were celled up for about a good year. So, during that year, he picked up a lot of schooling. And he also ran he picked up a shoot program as well. Aside from the case that he caught, them, prosecuting him, giving him a couple more years, whatever they gave him, they also gave him a shoot program. But while he's there fighting the case, that shoot program was running. So once his case was adjudicated and, he was done fighting that case, they ended up shipping him to Corcoran. He had a shoot program. He had 3 months, about 2 or 3 months left on his shoot. So he gets to Corcoran, he runs that, he finishes up his shoot program, and then they end up endorsing him to Pleasant Valley. But while he's there, they kicked him out to the C yard in Corcoran. They kicked him out, pending transfer. He was waiting. He was already done with his shoe, so there's no reason for them to keep him in ADSE or in the shoe program. So they kick him out to the C yard, while he's waiting for a bus. They figure he's only going to be there a couple months. However long he's there, we'll send him out to a yard, and when that bus comes, we'll throw him on the bus and send him to Pleasant Valley. So that's what they did. So prior to him getting kicked out to the yard, before he ends up going out to C yard, they send him out there with a kite, with a huila from Artie from King Cobras. And they give him directions. They tell him, take this kite out there and give it to this individual from Florencia. So at that time, Artie from King Cobras and Daryl from Artesia, they had that yard. So Sporty, he gets out to the yard and he locates this individual from Florencia. He finds him on the yard and he pulls him over and he's like, hey, homie, he's like, check this out. I got a one-time for you from Artie from King Cobras. He's like, go ahead and check it out. When you're done, go ahead and get rid of it, bro. So this individual from Florencia, he busts open the kite, he reads it, and then he gives it to Sporty so that he could read it as a means of, he did it so that Sporty could read it, and it was a way of, you know, confirming that that directive was real, what was contained in that kite. And what the kite said was that they wanted this individual from Florencia, they wanted him to knock down the llavero on that yard, on C yard. So that's why he passed it on to Sporty. He was like, you know what, go ahead and check this out and, you know, sign off on it. Basically, that's what he was doing. Check it out so that you know, you can see it with your own eyes that this is what they're asking me to do. So Sporty, he checks it out. He sees that, you know, this guy's got directives to whack the llavero out there. And this guy from Florencia, he's like, hey, bro, he's like, check it out, Sporty. He's like, man, do me a bottle, bro. He's like, what's up? He's like, hey, he's like, roll with me, bro. I don't got nobody else, you know, to go with me. If they try to, you know, assist this individual, I need somebody to get my back. This is the time, you know, when they got all these entourages again. Yeah, some of you, you know, I seen you in the comments. Boxer don't like them entourages. It's just not that I don't like them. It's just crazy when I think about it. You know what I mean? Some presidential type of bullshit. So anyway, when this individual from Florencia asked Sporty to roll with him, Sporty's like, yeah, fuck it, bro. I'll go with you, man. It's all good. So what ends up happening is the next day, this individual from Florencia, he ends up getting rolled up. Squad comes, they snatch him up, they take him back to the hole on a validation packet. You know, it's kind of suspicious that he got rolled up like that. I'm not saying that he dropped the kite on himself or found a way to get off that yard, but it's kind of suspicious that right before, you know, he gets a directive like that, right before he's got to go out there and do something like that, that he just gets rolled up the very next morning. But it is what it is. So he gets rolled up. Now, Sporty, he's out there and he's like, man, you know, I'm the only other one out here on this yard that's seen that huila. So now that this individual from Florencia is gone, Sporty, you know, he's thinking, he's like, damn, man, I'm the only one that's out here that's seen that huila. I'm the only one that's seen it. They destroyed it, obviously, after they read it. They flushed it, tore it up, flushed it, got rid of it. But now he's thinking, he's like, you know what? Fuck, I'm the only one that's seen it. And now that this guy from Florencia is back there with Artie, you know, I'm going to have to handle it. Otherwise, it's going to end up coming back on me. They know that I know about it, that I have knowledge of it. I'm sure old boy from Florencia is going to tell him that I read it. So, and I'm going to have to take care of this myself. So the first day when Sporty hit the yard, when he gets out there and, you know, they go through his paperwork, they screen him. The individual that had the llavero out there that had the keys, his name was Tigre from Riverside. And as soon as he read Sporty's paperwork, he seen where he came from. He's like, yeah, you know, this dude's a hitter right here. As soon as, you know, he read his paperwork, that same day, he put him on his mesa. So now Sporty's out there on this guy's mesa underneath this individual that now he has to hit, the llavero, Tigre from Riverside. So, you know, he's got to kind of be careful about how he goes about this. But, you know, there's a process. He knows that he's got to whack this dude at some point. But being that he's part of, you know, the mesa, it also gives him another advantage. So, you know, he's trying to figure out how to do this. He puts a banger together. And now he's trying to figure out what's the best time and place to hit this individual. And you guys got to remember, he's only on that yard temporary. You know, he's just there passing through. He's waiting on a bus to Pleasant Valley. So, you know, he's only going to be there for a brief minute. And he's got to get this done before he leaves. So what he's able to do is he's able to utilize a little bit of his influence to recruit a couple of Sureños that are out there. Some Sureños that they know what's happening and, you know, they're on board with it. They know that it's coming from the hole. It's coming from, and, you know, the back sent this directive, even though they didn't see it. You know, he's got them on board and he basically tells them, he's like, look, I'm going to go ahead and take care of this, but I need you guys to get my back just in case somebody else, you know, tries to come to this dude's assistance. So, you know, he got a little squad ready. They're ready to go. And, you know, he's just got to pick his time now. When is the best time to hit this individual? When and where? So the next morning, when they're on their way to chow, early in the morning for breakfast, the llavero, he waits for Sporty to come out his building. Sporty comes out And he approaches Sporty and he tells him, he's like, hey homie, he's like, check this out. He's like, I want you to strap up and I want you by my side all day today. He's like, man, I need you to post up with me all day. And Sporty's like, what's up, bro? And he's like, man, I feel like somebody's gonna try to move on me today. And Sporty's like, he's tripping. He's like, man, I'm sure he felt kind of funny knowing that, yeah, I'm the one that's gonna hit you. But he's like, what makes you think that? What makes you think somebody's gonna try to move on you? And dude's like, you know what, man, I have that feeling. I have a funny feeling that something's going on out here. I just can't put my finger on it. So, just post up. I need you by my side all day today, and have a banger on you, bro. So, if a situation does occur, we'll be ready for it. So Sporty's like, yeah, man. He's like, it's all good. But at that point right there, Sporty he just got a ticket. He just got a ticket to Pleasant Valley, and he's waiting. He's waiting to catch that bus. And it's already to the point to where, they tell him to pack his shit. So they're packing him out now, making him pack all his property. He's gonna have to bring everything to R&R and get ready to catch that bus. So he tells the Llavero, he goes, but check this out. I'm packing out this morning. So when I come out the building, he's like, just wait for me. I'm going to take my property to work change. I'm going to push my property in, get it processed. And then, I'll come back out and I'll be with you the rest of the day. She's like, just post up with me. So, this individual, he's like, yeah, it's all good. I'll wait for you. When you come out the building, we'll walk your stuff over there. It's all good. So that's the plan right there. So Sporty, he's got it in his mind how he's going to do it. He's already, he's getting himself pumped up. He knows the layout of the yard now, where the gun towers are at. He picks his spot, the best place he thinks he can do it. He knows he's going to come out of the building. He's going to have the cart with him. How's the best way to pull this out while this dude's with me? So Sporty comes out the building. This individual, he's there, and Sporty got all his stuff. He's got the cart, and they're pushing his shit across the yard. As they get by the tennis courts, they had tennis courts over there. CRC, man, is a crazy prison. I've never been there, but I heard a lot about it. And they used to send a lot of, ex-cops there that would get busted, and some high-profile individuals. That prison was bad for a long time, but it's flipped over the years. Anyway, so they're walking by the tennis courts, and they're walking, I'm sure Sporty's probably rocking them to sleep, getting them comfortable. This dude's looking around. He's got his head on a swivel. He's thinking somebody's going to come up somewhere. I don't know. Maybe he was using some crystal or something. I don't know, but he was paranoid. So when they get by the tennis court, Sporty, he pulls out his filero. He pulls it out, and this cat sees him. He sees him pull it out, and when he first pulls it out, he doesn't think that Sporty pulled it out to get on him. He thinks that he pulled it out to defend him. So he's thinking like somebody's coming up behind him or something like that. And he trips out, he spins around, and he ends up losing his balance. And as he's falling, Sporty, during the little bit of time that he was there, they kind of got close. He kind of took a liking to the dude. He's like, he's not a bad dude, but he's got a target on his back, so I gotta hit him. His thing was, I'm just gonna poke him a couple times, get him off the yard so Artie's happy, and I'm in the clear. So his intentions were just to poke him a couple times and be done with it. And he kind of liked the dude. So like I said, this dude, he's all discombobulated. He thinks somebody's coming up behind him. He spins around, loses his balance. Sporty goes to hit him in the side or something. And as the dude's falling, so the banger ends up going through his neck, all the way through his throat. It severs his spinal cord and damn near kills him instantly. By the time this dude hit the ground, he was already dying. He was dead. And, he didn't mean to do that. So, like I said, Sporty was just going to hit him a couple times. But the way that this dude fell, I guess, when he swung at him, that's where he ended up catching him. He caught him in the throat. It pierced his throat, came out the other side, severed his spinal cord, and game over. Dude ended up dying almost instantly. So when that happened, So right after he hits him, he's still pushing his cart with his property. He's going towards work exchange. He passes the filero off to somebody else. They get rid of it. They shuffle it on the yard. It goes to wherever they got rid of it. And he pushes his property through work change, and he's in R&R. He's getting processed out now. So by the time they put the yard down, he had already made it through. He's in R&R getting processed out. So he's not even on the schematics. He's in another location getting processed to catch that bus. So, they got the yard down. They got everybody proned out. They got a crime scene out there. They got a body out there on the yard. Well, they obviously scooped this dude up, probably took him to the infirmary, tried to do what they could to save him. But, when something like that happens, it's slow going. They keep everybody proned out. A lot of times they'll come out there with a bunch of those wrist cuffs. They'll cuff everybody up and have them laying there for a long time. So that's what they did. They had everybody out there for a while until they processed the crime scene, and then they started running them in one by one. Meanwhile, Sporty's on the other side of work change, and nobody even knows he's involved. The way he did it, it must have been like he must have did it smooth, because he makes it to R&R. He catches the bus to Pleasant Valley. He gets there to Pleasant Valley. He has a couple months left, and he ends up making parole. Nobody told on him. He ended up getting away with it. So he gets out to the streets, and and for those of you that are saying, then why are you talking about it? Later on, he'd end up getting caught up. All this would end up coming out. So he's happy. I'm sure he was happy to get out there on the streets. He was probably stressed the fuck out when parole came. That day that he was getting ready to parole, he was probably like, man, I know they're going to come. Somebody's going to pop up in R&R. They're going to gaffle me up. But he ends up making it through. He ends up paroling, touches down. He gets back out there on the streets. So while he was there, while he was in Chino with Turtle from Ontario, with Mike Boo from Norwalk, Wino from La Rana, some other C's, and then Sana. He knew Sana from the streets. He ends up locating some of these individuals out there. Obviously, they exchanged information while they were together and made plans like, hey, when you touch down, get at me. We'll link up out there and we'll start working. They, like I said, they took a liking to him. So Turtle, he wanted to work with them on the streets, and he gets out now. He gets in touch with all these individuals. Sana wasn't there. He wasn't there in Chino with some of these other guys. But Sana was somebody that he had known, before that. I don't know, at some point he had met Sana. But at any rate, he gets in touch with all these individuals, and now he's out there in the streets. And like I said, collectively over the course of, his career when he was active, he interacted probably, with anywhere from 20 to 30 Mexican mafia members over the course of all that time that he was active. So now he's out there on the streets. He starts working with Sana because, that's the area that he's living in. And him and Sana, I don't know their history. Again, I don't know where they met, where he met him at. I don't know nothing about their history. But obviously, Sana took a real liking to him. And, they were tight. They were close. He's out there, he's working with Sana and, out there in Orange County. And, this is when Sana had first got out the feds. This is when he got out the feds, and he had that meeting at, I think it's Elysian Park, the meeting where he got everybody together, and he basically implemented those edicts, the no drive-by edicts, and the stopping the internal gang warfares between hoods out there. He was trying to unify all the different neighborhoods out there. So he's out there, he's working with Sana, he's doing his thing. And Sporty was supposedly, he was the first guy from LA that was in charge of the Orange County jail, whatever county jail it is. I don't know if it's called the Orange County jail, whatever county jail that they go to in Orange County. He's the first LA guy that was in charge of the county and the streets. He had that whole area, and Sana was the one that put him in that position. So there was a lot of guys out there that did not like him for that reason. They felt like, they were mad that Sana decided to put him in that position rather than to put somebody else from Orange County in that position. You know, I'm starting to learn that there seems to, you know, be some type of rivalry between Orange County and LA that I never knew nothing about. And that's just, you know, from these stories right here. But obviously, you know, he had a lot of issues with F Troop. For whatever reason, F Troop were the ones primarily that gave him most of the problems. They pushed back against him. They didn't like him. They didn't care for him. They didn't like the fact that, you know, he was in the position that he was. So he had a lot of people that were against him, but he had a lot of support out there as well. A lot of people ended up liking him. He's young, you know, he's a striving Sureño. He's doing his thing. He's making a name for himself. A lot of guys knew about the stuff that he was doing in prison, and you know, he's built a name for himself. He's built a reputation by this time. So he's out there moving about. He's doing his thing. He ends up running into Tigre. He runs into Tigre from F Troop. And, you know, Tigre is somebody that had OC out there for like a long time, like 8 years or something. He was out there with the keys for a long time. Don't quote me on that. This is something that, you know, this was something that was relayed to me. I don't know. This is not something that I'm guessing. But according to, you know, my guy that told me the story, he had been running that area for a long time. And this was somebody that Sporty knew. He knew Tigre. They knew each other for a while. They had history. Matter of fact, Tigre was with Sporty and Corcoran. He was there with them on the yard. He was there on the yard when that murder happened. So, you know, as soon as Sporty came out, Tigre, he took him up under his wing. He started working with him, and he became his right-hand man. So they're out there, you know, running the streets, working together under Sana. They're doing their thing. Meanwhile, this is about the time when the indictments were just starting to heat up. The indictments hadn't broke yet. They were in the process of you know, coming out. These guys obviously had no knowledge about it. They had no idea that, you know, these indictments were coming out. But, you know, there was a lot of shit going on out there on the streets. There was a lot of shit. They were connecting the dots. They were putting a case against a lot of people out there. So they're building this case. These guys don't know about it. They're out there in the thick of it. And at around the same time, there's an individual that I just recently told you guys a story about, Thumper. You know, I identified Thumper as being from Anaheim, but I found out that's not the case. So Thumper was from Orange, Barrio Cypress. So I thought he was from Anaheim, but apparently he wasn't. So at that time, Thumper's in the county jail, and he's fighting a 3-strike case. He's in the county jail. He's running the county jail under Tigre. He's running the county jail under Tigre, and that's being done under the direction of Sana. So really, it's Sana, but, you know, Tigre is Sana's buffer. He's like his second in command. He's like his insulator, but Thumper's running the county jail. Now, this was around the time also Mondo Moreno just got out. He ends up getting out, and, you know, I don't know if he had directives or if he just ended up linking up with Tigre and Sporty, but they link up with them. And at that time, Mondo had some directives. His directives or his mission was to locate Musclehead from Delhi in Wacom. They wanted him to kill Musclehead. So he's out there, he's looking for Musclehead from Delhi, and he doesn't know where to find this individual. He doesn't know where to find him. He don't know where he's at. He doesn't got a location on him. He don't know nothing about him. All he knows is that there's an individual named Musclehead from Delhi that's a dropout, and, you know, he was sent out there to whack this individual. It just so happens to be that Sporty knows this guy. He knows him. He knows how to get a hold of him. He knows where to locate him at. He knows where he runs around at on the streets. So he conveys this to Mondo. He tells Mondo, look, you can find him over here. You know, I'm pretty sure he's got relatives that live over there. And, you know, he gives him all the information he needs so that Mondo can handle his business. And at this time, you know, for those of you that know the history between Mondo and Sana, at that time, there was no issues with Mondo. Everything was copacetic at that time. There wasn't no rivalry. He wasn't fighting with Sana at that time. There was no power struggle. And, you know, Mondo, he was from a small hood called Hard Times. And this isn't my choice of words. This was how it was conveyed to me. Hard Times was like a poo butt neighborhood that had no hitters, no killers. They had nothing. It was just a small neighborhood that, there was just a few cats from there, but they were like nobodies. They really didn't have that respect out there on the streets. And all his younger brothers, they were all from Santa Anita. So it was kind of weird because Santa Anita, that was Hard Times' biggest rival. That was like their mortal enemies. So, that was kind of crazy. I don't know the details on how all that happened, but later on there's more to it. There were actually accusations at one point where they were saying that Mondo was, used to be a Crip at one time, but we'll get into all that later. But that's where Mondo's from. He's from Hard Times, and he was out there. He's a C, he's functioning, and he's good. He's good at that time. But Mondo, he's smart. What he does is, as he's putting together a crew out there, he doesn't go to his neighborhood and he doesn't start recruiting cats from Hard Times. He starts recruiting, everybody that he recruited was from Santa Anita. He's recruiting some hitters, and he had some good cats on, some solid individuals that were on his team. And that's who he was surrounding himself with, cats from Santa Anita. I want to say Hard Times is from like a small area over there by Garden Grove or something. But again, they were a hood that didn't get a whole lot of respect out there on the streets. So that's who Mondo's crew was. A lot of cats from Santa Anita. He's out there, he's putting his crew together, he's doing his thing, and he's starting to establish a little bit of influence out there on the streets. But when it comes to Santa Anita, these guys are religiously loyal to Sporty. I mean, he's got this neighborhood sold up. These dudes were, beyond the normal, definition of being loyal. These guys, a lot of these guys from Santa Anita that were loyal to Sporty, they actually even had his name tattooed on them. That's kind of weird. That's crazy. I've only known of one other situation like that where, there was a northerner that he ended up getting one of the other homies' names on him, and that homie got, they had each other's names on them, and they were they were childhood friends. They used to go to school together and all that, and they were tight. So I don't know. It's kind of weird, but a lot of those dudes that from Santa Anita, they had Sporty's name tattooed on them. So that's how loyal he was. But Sporty was the type of dude, he was the type of individual that, he was a different breed, a different type of individual. When it came to loyalty, he was about as loyal as it got. He was somebody that if you worked for him, if you sold dope for him, if you were part of his crew, he took care of you. You didn't want for nothing. If you ended up going to jail, you had money on your books. If you ended up going to jail and you needed to get bailed out, he had all those resources. He had bail bonds in his pocket. He had lawyers in his pocket. And, if you were somebody that went to jail and you had if it was under 250,000, he could get you out with a phone call. No collateral, no money down, no nothing, just a phone call. And that's because he had done so much business with these bail bonds that, he had established a level of trust with these guys where at any given time, he could have 10 or 15 dudes out on bond with no money down. That's how much they trusted him. And, the other thing that Mondo did that was, it just goes to show how loyal he was in, the bond that he had with all these dudes that would work with him is he had a couple notebooks that he used to carry around. And in these notebooks, he had all that was in there was names, birth dates, dates of anniversaries and things like that. If you were locked up, and Christmas came, he'd end up going to the pad, and dropping off presents with your kids, or, if you missed your anniversary, he'd make sure that your wife got an anniversary present from you. He did all those extra things that those type of things mean something. Somebody that goes by and makes sure that your kids, got presents on their birthday, make sure that they got presents on Christmas. Those are the type of things that he was doing. He took care of his people. And that's why these guys that were real tight with him, they ended up getting, his name tattooed on them. And the other thing is, the name he had built for himself, the things that he did in prison, the rumors that were going around about, him having some kills under his belt, the things that he was doing on the streets, those are the type of individuals that, the youngsters, they look up to. They gravitate towards those individuals. So it's not far-fetched that, some of these cats would have his name tattooed on them. But, I know some people probably think like, man, that's a bit much. But, hey, it is what it is, man. That's just how loyal they were. So, like I told you guys earlier, Thumper was in the county jail. He's fighting a 3-strike case. Once his case was adjudicated, he ended up getting convicted. They put him on a bus and they sent him to Wasco. When Thumper gets to Wasco, as soon as he hits ADSEG, they blasted him. As soon as he gets there, they whack him. I guess at that time, the conflict with Mondo, it had just started. I don't know what started it. That's another story. But the conflict, that involved Mondo and Sana, it had already started. So, when Thumper got to Wasco, what happened is Thumper had a lot of people there at Wasco. He had it sold up. So, being that Thumper was loyal to Sana, they whacked him as soon as he got there. And then anybody that was loyal to Sana that would pull up to Wasco, they were getting blasted. As soon as they would find out that these individuals, they're with the Orange County car and, they're loyal to Sana, they'd end up getting whacked. So what Thumper does is, he's got a neighbor. His neighbor is getting ready to parole. He's a little youngster out of Bakers. So this little youngster, he's getting ready to parole, and Thumper tells him, even though they had just whacked Thumper, it wasn't like they whacked him because, he was no good or nothing like that. He understood that it was because, there was a conflict going on. But he convinces the youngster to take a wheeler out there to the streets and to basically take this wheeler and give it to Tiger. So the little youngster from Bakers, he agrees to it. He's like, you know what? When I get out there, I'll find Tigre and I'll give him this one time. You got my word, bro. He's a good little youngster. And, Thumper, he emphatically emphasized, he's like, bro, this is important. Like, this is seriously important. This is, mafia business right here. This needs to get to where it's going. So the little youngster, when he paroles, he understands, this is a hot one time, and it's something that, I need to get this to where it's going. So the youngster, he paroles, and, he finds Tigre out there, gets in touch with Tigre. Tigre just so happened to be with Sporty at that time. So they're together, they go and pick this youngster up. The youngster calls them, he tells them where he's at. They go and pick him up. They get him. The youngster gives him the one time, he gives him the wheeler, and Tigre, he opens it up and he reads it. So basically with Thumper, Thumper tells him, he's like, hey, bro, he's like, look, I just got over here to Wasco. I'm here. They just hit me. He's like, Mondo's got a crew over here. Everybody, from our team that lands over here, they're whacking them, bro. You know what I mean? So, just be advised, man. Let the old man know what's going on. But, that's why they hit me. I'm over here right now in Wasco. And anybody that gets here from Orange County, anybody that's loyal to Sana, they're whacking them, bro. So what Sporty and Tigre do is that they call Mike Boo. Mike Boo from Norwalk at that time was living in Fresno. And he had Fresno. He had the keys out there at that time. So he's in Fresno, and he gets a phone call from Tigre, and Tigre relays that information. He tells him, hey, look, Thumper's over there in Wasco, and apparently Mondo's got a crew over there, and they're whacking anybody that's loyal to the old man. This just happened right now. So I want to say it was Sporty that actually called Mike Boo. So Mike Boo tells Sporty, he's like, is that right? He's like, hey, check this out, bro. He's like, look, this is what you do. He's like, go ahead and strike up a one time. Go ahead and get it Lalo from Lomas. Get at him and let him know what happened. Let him know what happened. Lalo's over there right now in Wasco. He's passing through. He's on his way back to the county jail to fight a case. But, he should be passing through Wasco. Let him know what's going on. And then the other thing that he says is, he's like, you know what? And tell Lalo that I said, anybody that's connected with that dude, Mondo, anybody that's, backing him up, he says, tell them that they're hard candy immediately and that they're to be hit on sight. And he says, and anybody that touched that individual, tell them that they're to be demolished. He's like, take a pedazo, wrap it up, take some carga, put it with the pedazo, seal that shit all up, give it to that youngster, and send him back in. Send him back in. So the plan is, this youngster that just paroled, he said, strike up that one time, strike that wheel up, get a pedazo, and put some clavo in there, put some carga up in there, wrap it all up, give it to that youngster, and send him back in there and tell him to give it to Lalo. So, that's what they do. They get a pedazo. I don't know what kind of pedazo that they had, maybe plastic. I doubt they sent him in there with some steel. They probably gave him a good piece of plastic, put a point on it, and got some carga, wrapped it up, and told him to go back up in there. They sent him back in with directives to give it to Lalo. So they start taking all these steps to make this happen and get this youngster ready to go, to send him back in. And, once they get it all wrapped up and, the youngster's ready to go, they take him to the bus station and, they buy him a ticket and they drop him off. So the youngster, he's out there, he's at the bus station, he's been down for a minute. He's somebody that's loyal to the Mexican mafia. He understands that this is Mexican mafia business. So, he doesn't have a problem with going back in. But the thing is he's out there, he's been locked up for a minute. He's young. This boy wants to sow his oats, man. So, he ends up running into there's a female at the bus stop. He sees her, he starts talking to her. Guess she started giving him those goo-goo eyes, man, and he knew it was all gravy. So, he hooks up with this Heina, and she ends up taking him back to a hotel wherever she was staying at. Next thing you know, they're smoking crystal. They're getting this youngster's getting all fucking, he's getting all gouged out now. He's got the pedazo on him, he's got the carga, he's got the wheeler the one time, and he's in this hotel room smoking. He's in there getting his little freak on with this female, and at some point, he decides, I'm gonna stay a couple more days. I'm gonna kick it with this Heiner for a couple more days, man. I'm feeling this, man. That thing that she did with the ice cubes, when she was humming my favorite song. Oh man, it's like I gotta have that like one more again, man, right? So, so anyway, he decides to stay a couple more days with this Heiner. They're in the hotel, they're doing their thing, and at some point after that, Anaheim PD rolls up on him. They roll up on him. He doesn't have the pedazo and everything, the one time and the carga, he don't have it secured. He got it on him, at the last minute, he's probably gonna hoop it. But they roll up on him, they find out he's on parole, so they run his name, bam! They ended up arresting him. They find the pedazo, they find the one time, and it's a straight kill kite. It's not coded, it's a straight, the directives are clear as day. It's not coded up, nothing. So, this is a conspiracy to commit murder, on behalf of the Mexican mafia with a nice fat, gang enhancement. So, this youngster, they spook him to the point of, they're probably tell, hey, you're gonna get 150 years of life, and these cops that arrested him, they ended up flipping him. They flipped him. This guy, he ends up telling on Tigre, and he gives up the whole game plan of what he was told to do and who's involved and who he was supposed to get at and what's going on over there in Wasco. So obviously the kite doesn't get delivered. Lalo never gets it, doesn't get the pedazo, doesn't get the garga. It never makes it. They got this youngster to flip. Now they know everything that's going on. But that investigation is still going on. And apparently, when the feds, when they're investigating you in a case like, superseding indictments where they're going after a criminal organization like the Mexican Mafia. What they do is they put a tag in the system, and if you're somebody that's a potential target in that investigation, basically this tag will tell, other law enforcement officers that might run your name, leave this fucking dude alone. Leave him alone. Do not arrest him. We need him to stay out. This is like hands off right here. We're giving him rope to hang himself. He's somebody that's, instrumental in an investigation, a serious investigation. So they tag these guys in the system. They tag Tigre, and I'm assuming they also tag Sporty. So at this point right here, this is probably a good spot to go ahead and cut this video short. This, like I said, this is going to be a video that's probably going to be either, I'm going to try to wrap it up in 2 parts, but it quite possibly could be 3, because there's a lot more to this story. Like I said, there's a lot of moving parts. So we'll see if I can wrap it up in 1 more episode. If not, there's going to be 3 parts to this. But again, this is a banger right here. There's a lot of different Mexican Mafia members that were involved in this. And there's still a lot more that I haven't mentioned that, are still going to pop into this story later on. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this story right here, at least this part of it. I'm going to come out with the second part probably tomorrow. I might run that live tomorrow though. So if I do that, it's going to kind of take me away from all that. I got to divide my time throughout the day, and I got to get my little, my little routine in as well. So I'll see you guys either Saturday or Sunday for the live. For those of you that continue to ask me about Inner Demons, I'm going to go ahead and run that episode right now. I think I can knock it out and get all this stuff edited by the morning or by early morning. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and close this one up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. So once again, I'll be back either tomorrow or Sunday with the second part of this story. With that being said, this is your boy B, and I'm out.